I think we'll get started. It's about 10 after 5. Thank you all who were prompt. Those that are coming in, we'll fill them in later. We will fill in others that, let me do that. We'll fill in others that arrive late due to parking or whatever, but thank you all for being on time. Welcome to the 96th annual meeting of the Martha's Vineyard Museum. I'm Steve Aubrey, the board chair at the museum, and I think we've got a agenda today, which I'll take you through in a minute, but I think our first item is to approve the 2017 annual meeting minutes, or have a discussion if anybody would like to have that. Was everybody able to get a copy of the minutes that were passed out on the way in, as well as a copy of the program? Everybody's got that, and a copy of our annual report. Can I get approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Thanks. I'm just going to talk briefly for a few minutes. This has been an extraordinary year for our museum. And I say our museum because you all have been wonderful supporters and contributors over the years, and that means a lot. It means a lot to where we've gotten to today, and it means a lot for where we're going in the near future. It has been a journey, and I joke and when I say, well, we're kind of a startup that's been in a garage, literally, for the last 100 years, and we're now going over to the big stage. That's not really, obviously, it's just saying we're in an incredible year of transformation. And I feel very proud to be standing here as board chair during this time of transformation that I think is very exciting, not only for all of us that know this museum so well and are willing to come down into Edgartown and explore the history and culture of our island, but what we're going to be able to share with more people when we make this place more accessible, more exciting, and I think we have a tremendous opportunity. It's kind of interesting that we are here in this Federated Church in downtown Edgartown with our back to Cook Street. This used to be Commercial Street, going down to Commercial Wharf, which is now the reading room. The Thomas Cook House, which the street was named after Thomas Cook, is owned by the museum, just a block away, and will continue to be owned by the museum, with some beautiful gardens in Edgartown, and a learning center and a wonderful place for people to explore and learn about pieces of history here on the island. But we will be on our way. Just in a few short months, we're moving up to Vineyard Haven and the old Commercial Street that made its way and wandered up the island as we do in the road now. Holmes Hole, now Vineyard Haven, will be our new home. The year, which you'll hear from Dale, and you're going to hear from David LeBreton and Phil, it's been an exciting year. And I know we're really talking about 2017, where it all started. I will say, continuing into 2018, we have a lot to be thankful for. One is an amazing staff, many of whom are sitting in the back of the room right now, who have, without complaint, said, we'll take it on. I mean, these are people that have day jobs, and they continue tirelessly to put all their energy, not into what they're doing today and what they have done every year after year, but where we're going in the future. And that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So I just want to say thank you to the staff. I also want to say thank you to our very generous board. And I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be here without the support of all the people who care so much about this organization and where we're going and what we're doing. Whether it's people that are donating their time or money or energy or ideas or all of the above, it's incredible. And we all are passionate about this because it means so much to this island, and this island that we all love so much. Our challenge and our opportunity, and why we get excited about this, is because we can make it bigger. And we can make this something that is going to attract people and let them feel the connection that we feel. The reason we're involved with this museum is because we love this island so much, and the history and everything that made up the history of this island. There's a few board members, and we'll get a little repetition here because David LeBreton is going to come up and talk our governance, but who I really want to shout out and thank, who have supported me as board chair and the staff and other board members bringing ideas to the table. Bob Blacklow, thank you. Unbelievable support for the museum. Dale Garth, couldn't have done it without you. Phoebe, thank you very much for your work and contributions to this museum. Calvin, I don't see you here, but Calvin's going to be leaving the board. Mark Lovewell, June Manning, Chris Morris, Denny. I can't tell you how much it means to me to have people that are doing the hard work that we're all doing on the board right now to transition this museum. I'm not going to say goodbye because I hope you're going to come back. Part of our governance is that you do need to take some time and then cycle back onto the board, but all those people. And we have some terrific new board members joining us that David will talk to you about in a few minutes. So the agenda, that's all I really have to say. I think we all know, and Phil will talk a little bit more about where we are and where we've come from over the course of the year. You're going to hear from Phil next, and then Dale is going to give us a financial report. We have, I will say, climbed a tremendous mountain. We're still climbing. And he's going to give you the report on the amount of money we've raised in our capital campaign, not only in 2017, but year to date in 2018. And after Dale, David LeBreton will talk to us about the new members joining the board and some governance items that we need to discuss. Then one of the wonderful things that we get to do as a museum is present the Martha's Vineyard Medal. And Phil is going to present it to 3 distinguished people on this island that we're very proud to be able to send out a wonderful message on the work that you do in this community. So without further ado, Phil. You all know Phil Wallis quite well. He's a shy guy over here in the corner. And we will carry on. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Steve, for being here. Yes, I'm Phil Wallis, Executive Director. And I want to pick up on the thanks that Steve gave to the board and staff and just review some of the highlights. I'm not going to go over everything that's listed in our year in review, but I have to remind you that what I'm about to tell you happened, yes, while we were planning, designing, raising money, and advancing our $30 million project campaign. So just sort of bear in mind when I tell you this, holy cow, how did you do anything but the project? I sort of get astounded myself. 2017 was the year that built upon a radical change for the Dukes County Historical Society became Martha's Vineyard Museum, and now the Martha's Vineyard Museum in transformation. We changed our mission, our vision. 2017 was the year that actually put that into play. And 2018, as you can see, if you haven't seen, we actually turned that reality into a real building, and it's really happening. But during the year, I'll never forget this, for 5 months, we went before the Martha's Vineyard Commission. Oh yes, you remember, Steve. That was arduous, but I will tell you, it was important. It was very important for us to hear from the community, all parts of the island, to get critiqued. And we came out the other side after 5 months with the unanimous approval of the project. That actually was hard work, but it was really important work. So that was point 1 that I wanted to convey. The other was, of course, the board decided to say yes to the project and vote on that in October, and that was a big deal. Dale, I remember you saying, okay, everybody, this is it. This is the vote that's going to send us into our next destiny. I remember it very well. In addition to that, Bonnie Stacy, who's our chief curator, decided masochistically to say, I'll take on the strategic plan, because we needed to have a brand new strategic plan that mirrored the new mission and vision we had. We all knew that. That's a lot of work. Many times that can take years to do. Bonnie led us through that in a course of 3 to 6 months, and we came out with a very adaptable management plan that we're very excited by. I want to give a big shout out first to Anne Descharmes in the back there, and our Director of Education continues to advance what's very, very important to us, and that is the youth and young adults, but primarily targeted at the 4th grade up or down on the island. Last year, 7 island public schools were interacted with, 1,100 island students, creating over 3,500 educational opportunities. That's Anne with another half-time employee. Still don't know where your clone is walking around on the island, but I know she's out there. We partnered with 8 other island educational organizations. That takes a lot of work, but that was good because it leveraged places like Polly Hill to be doing work, Montessori and others, but it takes a lot of time to interact with them and develop a curriculum that works. I am just going to note your math life or death because I think it's pretty cool. So Anne does very cool creative things, the most recent of which that I thought was extraordinary. She collaborated with Bo Van Riper in the back with a problem that was presented. How do we take 6th graders and get them interested in mean, mode, range, and average? Oh boy, exciting things for school children. Bo and Ann came up with an idea to do essentially grave rubbings at the Edgartown graveyard to see what is the age of the families that lived here. How old were the children when they were here? And they were radically different in each of the centuries. This was a real eye-opener for the children, and they will never forget mean, mode, median, and average. So thank you, Ann and Bo, for that. In exhibits and programs, a number of people are involved in that. Bonnie and Anna and Katie, 9 exhibits. We had 9 exhibits and more than 60 programs and events. Yes, I just want to remind you, during the year when we were planning the actual big project. Some of those in the Spotlight Gallery involved the Shearer Summer Theater, 375 years of the Federated Church. I remember Tom Dunlap doing his research, figuring out why this door faces this way and Thomas Cook House faced that way. And if you want to get the answer, see me afterwards. Very cool. But Tom Dunlap stood right up here and gave that, and we mimicked that in our exhibits as well. Where's Anna? Anna's out there. She's our ringleader for Pechacucha. If you haven't been to the Harbor View on a Friday night in the off months, if you will, the winter months, please do. 700 people have gone to Pechacucha. Anna, I don't know if you knew that, but that's a pretty extraordinary number. There are all sorts of stories from all around the island. Very interesting. The last I'm going to say on exhibits and programs is the work we're doing with the largest African-American oral history group in America, the History Makers. They were just here, well, still are here actually, but had their annual event up on our Marine Hospital site. This year we did it again to rave reviews. I look forward to that in the future. We acquired numerous things: 2 whaling log books, Lois Melo Jones reference library at auction. I think Dan Waters was the one who found that on eBay, and all of a sudden we started bidding, and we're the proud owner of the entire reference library of Lois Mayo Jones. We have digitized all our whaling log books that are now accessible through the Boston Public Library. And Lindsay Lee, right there, added 18 new voices to our oral history, probably 80, but I just wrote down 18 that I knew. Bo, in the library area, 23% more people are going to the library. Wait till you open the new one, big guy. You're going to be overwhelmed. I'm really looking forward to that. Most importantly, the Dukes County Intelligencer is now called the Martha's Vineyard Museum Quarterly. We are now committed to not 2, but 4 each year, and we put a new face on it, but I will tell you the content is exactly the same. So don't fear, it's the same good work that Bo's been leading, same size, so Skip Finley can put it on his bookshelf and make sure they all fit. That was a very important criteria, I remember. Oh yes, very, very important. Last 2 things. So how do people respond to our work? Well, 4,400 volunteer logged hours came in from 130 different people. Over 35,000 people visited the lighthouses. And Chris Murphy, who is not here, our captain of the catboat Vanity, logged in over 40 sails last summer. And this year, I think it was close to 80. So we're popular, let's put it that way. The last point I want to make, in 2017, we hit an incredible benchmark. We raised $20 million towards the capital campaign. I think all of us, board and staff and all our supporters, were astounded that we had met that. Well, this year we've gotten to nearly 25 million. So we're, as Stever said, we're on a roll. We're making it happen. It's being built. This is your museum, it's our museum, it is happening. And with, I won't say luck, I'll say persistent, dogged work on the part of Stever and Dale and others, we will be opening this museum in 2018 for all to enjoy. So thank you all, you made it happen. And I'm just going to turn it over to Dale, Garth, to talk about more of the details. But thank you all.
As you've gathered from what the others have said, 2017 was a pretty momentous year for the museum, as we made the strategic and financial decision to move forward with this new construction for the Vineyard Haven campus. As most of you know, the construction is now underway. It should be completed in the next few months, and our targeted time to relocate is toward the end of this year. While this meeting and the annual report you're reviewing are really formally about 2017, there are so many significant financial developments taking place in 2018 that we're going to update you on the status of a number of those things as well. 2017 was the museum's last full year of operation on the Edgartown campus, since 2018 is greatly abbreviated and an atypical year due to all the packing and moving. For 2017, the museum continued to show solid growth in revenue from operating activities and programming, and operating expenses were well managed with some planned growth as we prepared to move to this larger, more complicated new campus. With the combined fundraising efforts, the museum has achieved a surplus of $40,000 for the year. Successful efforts in our to raise funds through the comprehensive capital campaign was the key factor in our making the decision to move forward with the construction. As we have described before, we have been referring to this campaign as comprehensive because it supports a range of needs. It's the funds to develop and relocate to the Marine Hospital site, but also the funds to support operations and the transition costs during the years leading up to that relocation. And finally, the funds to build an endowment as a source of supporting our operations in future years. The total targeted needs of the comprehensive campaign are $31 million. Through 2017 and 2018, the growth in cash and pledges grew steadily, as Phil just cited. Coupled with agreements to sell 2 parcels of the Edgartown property, both of which are going to close when we relocate, we are approaching total funds for the campaign of a little under $25 million. This leaves $6 million to $6.5 million still to raise. Also, as part of managing our finances, in the spring of 2017, we arranged a line of credit to help bridge the difference in the timing for the funds that are needed for the construction costs and when the receipt of funds from pledges and new commitments come in. The allowance for $6 million through Cape Cod 5 for a 5-year term at a favorable fixed interest rate. In the spring of 2018, the line was increased by $4 million, primarily to support the short-term need for the cash that we haven't gotten quite yet from the sale of the properties, but we'll get when we relocate, so that we'll be able to pay that back then. At the end of 2017, we had not drawn on the line of credit at all. During the height of the construction activity, we have been using it as we planned, actually a little bit less than we planned, and our target is to have 0 outstanding when the project and campaign are completed. So the purpose of this is not for us to have debt. This is just a means to get through this timing question with construction. In the summer of 2017, the museum reached an agreement with Consigli, a major Boston contractor, to manage the construction of the new campus. The total project budget, that included the Consigli contract, some additional construction costs that weren't in that contract, and all the various non-construction costs, was slightly less than $18 million. Prior to the start of the construction, the museum incurred several significant project costs that were part of this budget. A great deal of hazardous material abatement, the demolition in the older buildings and to take down the 1938 building, and archaeological explorations throughout the campus. The actual construction began in the early fall of 2017, just less than a year ago, and by the end of the total year, project cost had reached $3.7 million. The full amount of the construction project related spending should be incurred by the end of 2018. Another important financial step is to continue to build the museum's endowment to support future operations. With further commitments to the National Endowment for the Humanities Grant and favorable financial market performance, at least for the time being, the endowment reached $1.6 million by the end of last year and is at $2 million now. The endowment is currently invested in a low-cost balanced portfolio managed by Vanguard. Outside of the comprehensive campaign, so things not for that, from that $31 million, an opportunity was presented to the museum in the spring of 2018 to purchase a house on Skiff Avenue that's adjacent to the new museum campus and that is in very good condition. 2 generous donors contributed $1.2 million to enable the museum to buy the house, which will be used for collection, storage, and office space. This was a very important step that helped us solve a problem that we were working on. A second house next door to the first, which is not in good condition and will probably be a tear down, is in the process of being purchased. Another generous donor has committed to providing the funds for this purchase. These special situations provide great opportunities for the museum to build a Vineyard Haven campus for the future. One other area with funding that's outside of the comprehensive campaign is the Cookhouse and Legacy Gardens, the remaining 17,000 square foot portion of the existing Edgartown campus. It will contain the historic cookhouse along with period gardens and landscaping and will be used as a visitor site and for education and programming. Additional funding for this property is being raised by a group in Edgartown working closely with the museum to do so. A final point to note as we look forward to the museum's financial operations when this transformation is more fully realized. A key objective is to improve the museum's opportunity to have year in and year out financial sustainability. This will be accomplished by having much greater proportion of our expenses covered by revenue from operations as we have much greater number of visitors on the new campus. As well as we will utilize the earnings from the endowment to support operations during that period. Together, these will make the museum much less reliant on the annual fundraising effort. This is an important element in the overall financial strategy for this organization. So, after years of planning and fundraising, the development and relocation of the new campus is close at hand, which is very exciting. We have received support from many. members, patrons, board, volunteers, staff, as well as the island community at large. Many thanks to all of you for making it happen. And I guess that says in the thing questions, so I guess Steve or Phil or I will all take questions, but there don't have to be any. That's David?
All right, let's see how I can do this. My rascally, impish nephew printed this out for me in the tiniest of... This portion of the meeting requires your participation. But before we get down to business, I'll add my own thank yous. You should all rest assured that you have a dedicated board that is very passionate about our mission. Trustee work at the museum is not passive and requires a good deal of time and commitment, I promise. And you are all seeing the results. I want to thank the trustees whose terms end today, who are rotating off the board. Bob Blacklow, Dale Garth, Phoebe Lewis, Calvin Lindeman, Mark Lovewell, June Manning, Chris Morris, and Denys Wortman. All of these departing friends have worked hard, have been effective and important members of the board, and many have agreed to continue to provide their insights and help as we move forward. I personally want to cite Bob Blacklow, where are you, Bob? Who has been a valuable and meticulous member of the governance committee and has agreed to stay on the committee and cheerfully point out where and when I have strayed from proper procedure. Now I'd like to present for your consideration and vote the following candidates up for election for their first 3-year terms as directors. Marcia Sini, Jim Richardson, and Betsy Weinstock, all returning after their sabbaticals. Meredith Deegan, Fred Johnson, Fane Hackney, David Lewis, and Jim Newman. You have all their bios in front of you, and we as a board enthusiastically endorse all of them. Accordingly, I move that you approve the names on this slate as first-term members of the board. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Up for consideration for their second 3-year terms are Barbara Elaine, Steve Aubrey, Dee Dee Frank, and Peter Gerhardt. I move that you approve the names on this slate as second-term members of the board. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Okay. Finally, we are proposing 2 changes to the bylaws which are noted in your package and which require your approval. First, with so many conflicts in August, we feel the annual meeting should be held at a time more convenient to membership. We therefore propose a change in the bylaws to move the meeting to the last Monday in July. This date will remain in effect unless members are notified 30 days in advance of a change. Do I have a second for this bylaw change? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Wonderful. That motion is carried. And finally, the second bylaw change involves term limits for our officers. This should not be considered an article of impeachment, rather than as a clean method of transition. The proposed addition reads, except for the executive director, no officer shall serve more than 5 consecutive 1-year terms unless approved on an annual basis by a 2/3 majority of those present at the first board of directors meeting follow its annual meeting. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. Now you can enjoy the rest of the program.
We are now going to begin the Martha's Vineyard Medal Awards. And I will be the, I guess, the coordinator of this, but there are a number of different speakers presenting them. But I just want to tell you that this award started in 2009, and stories and storytelling are very, very important to who we are. And the people we're going to be presenting the award to are premier storytellers, yes, but more to the point, they are committed to preserving the history of this island. Each of them loves this place, this sense of place, the art, the community, the people that make this island this special place. Specifically, there are 5 areas that the board considers: historic preservation, fine and performing arts, literature, community activism, and education. This year, there are 3 award winners, and they are in your schedule here, your brochure. Rose Styron, Ann Smith, and Denys Wortman. Rose wanted to be here, but she's not. She could not be here for reasons I won't go into, but she's saddened that she isn't here, but she can't be here. It's not physical, but she can't be here. So I asked her to write what she cared about. For those of you who don't know Rose Styron, I'm going to tell you just a little bit about her. She is a poet, a journalist, and a translator and international human rights activist. She has traveled widely for Amnesty International and other human rights organizations, chairing several national advisory councils, including the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Award. She loves poetry, loves writing, and indeed she has published 4 volumes of poetry, numerous essays, book chapters, and introductions. I didn't know this, but I'm going to rib her about it later. With Meryl Streep, yes. She co-chairs the Poetry and Creative Mind on stage at Lincoln Center on behalf of the Academy of American Poets each April. I'm going to make that one. Steve, you can go with me. Anyway, she is involved in Beyond Conflict. That's very important to her. It's the international organization with its new emphasis on neuroscience and conflict resolution that's particularly important now in Massachusetts. And she is currently working on a memoir and literary articles. Most importantly, Rose is very active, engaged on her beloved island of Martha's Vineyard. She's involved in a number of nonprofits, Women Empowered, Martha's Vineyard Community Services, excuse me, the Poetry Cafe at the Playhouse, and the Martha's Vineyard Book Festival. This is what she wrote that I'm now going to read. It's very brief, 3 paragraphs. I first came to the island 60 years ago with my husband, Bill Styron, and first small child, Susanna. Soon after, we and more children began spending summers here, renting in Katama and Vineyard Haven until 1964, when we bid to purchase our current house, sight unseen. You can just imagine Rose doing that. The lawn we'd passed on our way walking to the Vineyard Haven Yacht Club was the lure. Our family never missed a summer after that, and not many Thanksgivings, Christmases, or Easters. 3 generations of Styrons consider Martha's Vineyard their home. Our best friends encountered and conversed with and celebrated here amid amazing adventures. The beauty, the peace, the constant activity of children and sailors and tennis players, the view from the little theater that is viewed from our porch, lawn, dock, and beach have nourished us and our countless vineyard old pals and new pals, the young, most cherished for decades. Especially important to me since I moved here a few winters ago, year-round, is what a caring community we have. Also, what fresh landscapes and neighborhoods are surprise discoveries for me each and every year, and what an extraordinary, unique island history I constantly learn we have. How we all treasure it, and its museum. Oh, that was a surprise to me that she put in there. I am so thankful that the museum, which chronicles this history, flourishes and now has secured its impressive premises and exhibits in my town. I will continue to haunt it, I know. Thank you for including me in today's honors and tomorrow's flowering. Best to everyone. I'm sorry I'm not here. Rose. So that's from Rose. I'm going to turn this over now to Ann Smith's sister, so please come up here. I will say that the words flowering have meaning at the end of Rose's piece because we are actually going to commemorate Rose with a poetry garden that she is aware of, and you will hear more about it. She was a little overwhelmed, but some individuals felt very strongly about this, and so we're going to be doing that, and we'll tell you more about that later. Please, come on up. I will introduce Janis Smith Gomez.
Correct.
And there is a striking resemblance between Ann and Janis, her sister. Please go right ahead.
Good evening. Good evening to all of the Martha's Vineyard Museum Board of Directors and guests. I am Janis Smith Gomez. I am Ann's identical twin sister, 4 minutes younger than her. And I am really thrilled to be here. I was here with Ann introducing my mother, Francine Kelly, when she won this prestigious award in 2011. This is truly a special night and a true family affair, so I want to start first by congratulating Rose Styron and Denys Wortman, who are also part of the Featherstone family. Many of you may know that Rose Styron has read her poetry at Featherstone, most recently in 2017, as part of the Pathways Art, Featherstone, and Noepe Summer Festival of Poetry. It's a 10-year-old collaborative between these three local not-for-profit arts organizations. She has also generously hosted U.S. Poet Laureate Billy Collins, who comes every other year to Featherstone in the summer, and she has sponsored dinners with him during his time on the island. And then there's Denny. Denny is the wise and supportive one who identified and hired my mother, Francine Kelly, to be the executive director of Featherstone Center for the Arts. So he should also get the credit for bringing Ann here too. And Ann and Marilyn have worked tirelessly together on several Featherstone galas. So hearty congratulations to both you, Rose and Denny. So I'd like to take about 5 minutes to tell you Ann's story, as Phil talked about. Martha's Vineyard has always been like home to us. Our great-grandfather preached here in Trinity Church in Oak Bluffs back in 1951, with my grandmother and my mother, Francine, at age 12 in tow. And since then, my grandmother continued to bring my mother each summer, and my mother started bringing us when we were very young, and we've summered here ever since. And the summer tradition continues with my daughter, Anna. My mother retired here from Indianapolis in 2003, only to start her next chapter of life as the executive director of Featherstone. Called by our mother to assist, Ann came to the island full-time in 2006. Ann has a bachelor's degree in art history and economics from the University of Michigan and had worked for many years in education. It was always a pleasure to see Mom and Ann work side by side. Ann loved the arts as much as my mom, and Ann could easily finish my mom's sentences. They had a genuine collaborative partnership, truly loving what they do and doing what they love, with the same aspiration for Featherstone, creating community through the arts. For me, there was no better person to succeed my mom but Ann, and in September of 2010, Ann became the third executive director of Featherstone Center for the Arts. Her first objective was to initiate a campus master plan for Featherstone's 20th anniversary, which would be in 2016. Under Ann's leadership with a very supportive board, and Mom now by her side, the campus master plan was completed, and the capital campaign was launched during Featherstone's 50th anniversary year in 2011. Ann cultivated the largest gifts Featherstone has ever received, and in December of 2016, the shovel was placed in the ground for the building of the new art barn and pottery studio, and 9 months later, 8,200 new square feet were added, and in August 2017, the pottery studio and art barn were finally open, creating the first purpose-built art space on the island, truly a vital part of the island's arts landscape as it was described. In its first year, the art barn, with the aptly named Francine Kelly Gallery, has hosted multiple events, retrospectives, national artist shows, and hosted the U.S. Poet Laureate Billy Collins, as I mentioned. In October 2010, Ann was also instrumental in the creation of the Martha's Vineyard Arts and Cultural Collaborative. Her commitment to both Featherstone and the island's arts community made her a natural fit to lead it. so she serves as its chair from its inception to now. She has been the catalyst for bringing all of the arts and cultural organizations together, who up until this point did not even speak to one another, primarily based on fear, specifically concerned over competition for donors. But now these organizations regularly partner and work together. As chair, Anne spearheads seasonal marketing campaigns with the Martha's Vineyard Chamber of Commerce, like Fall for the Arts, and now most recently Spring for the Arts, to entice visitors to Martha's Vineyard, to experience our island in the off-season, and to take advantage of all the arts and cultural activities that the island has to offer. Anne is also very passionate about supporting Martha's Vineyard artists, not just at Featherstone, but all over the island. She spends her free time attending opening receptions and seeing shows at the galleries, banks, libraries, and other venues that showcase artists. Always a great listener to artists with wonderful ideas, Anne has championed events like Art on the Avenue with the Oak Bluffs Association, bringing art to Circuit Avenue in the off-season in 2015, as well as celebrating performing arts, visual arts, and food at the inaugural Vineyard Vincy Fest via the sister-to-sister island partnerships between St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the Martha's Vineyard Working Group in 2016. Anne and Featherstone, and many of the staff members are here, have forged significant partnerships with many not-for-profit organizations, including curating the Martha's Vineyard Film Festival's Feldman Family Art Space and the West Shop Club, as well as hosting first-time collaborations with the Vineyard Gazette and Sheriff's Meadow Foundation. And there are many more special projects planned for 2019 and the future. Since 2015, Anne also serves on the board of the New England Foundation for the Arts, known as NEFA, the regional arts agency for the National Endowment of the Arts, which builds connections among artists, art organizations, and funders to power the arts in New England and beyond. She currently serves as its secretary, overseeing the distribution of over $7 million in arts funding to the New England region each year. Anne has also served as a mentor to young people and many emerging artists. She is a role model and confidant for new professionals moving to the island, especially those in not-for-profit careers. Many artists ask for Anne's counsel on their art portfolios, presentations, as they seek admission to college, to graduate school, art competitions, and applications into galleries on and off the island. I love when Anne is recognized for all of her efforts. In 2015, Anne was awarded the Massachusetts Tourism Award from Governor Charlie Baker, exemplifying the best in tourism and hospitality throughout Massachusetts. Anne and my mom, Francine, were both honored together with the Creative Living Award in 2015 by the Permanent Endowment for Martha's Vineyard for providing meaningful service and contribution in the vineyard's arts, cultural, and community life. And Anne and Francine were recently photographed by Paul Lazis as part of Tough Chicks. Hopefully you all have seen that exhibit, which will currently have a permanent home at the Martha's Vineyard Museum, at the Martha's Vineyard Hospital, I'm sorry. There's so much more I could say, as I'm so proud of Anne, my sister, but I will end just by saying, on behalf of Anna, our entire family and friends, the Featherstone staff that's here, congratulations to you, Anne, on being a visionary leader in this community and for your outstanding commitment to preserving the history, arts, and culture of Martha's Vineyard. We love you.
Thank you so much. I promise I'll be very brief. The most important thing is my family, and I can't be more proud to be Francine Kelly's daughter, the identical twin sister of Janis Smith Gomez, and the aunt to Anna Gomez, my 17-year-old niece who's here with me tonight, and maybe someday might run Featherstone, who knows? I want to thank the Martha's Vineyard Museum. It's been wonderful collaborating with you through the years and the entire staff that I respect and adore in the back that I see. I also want to thank my Featherstone board that has just been so supportive for the 12 plus years that I've been at Featherstone, and just really give me the freedom to do what we can for a place that we all love so much. And I can't do any of it without my incredible staff. Most of them are here, so Posey, Kate, Margo, who are here. Thank you so very much. Thank you to my, as I said, my board members. I just see Allison and Carol, and Marilyn here as well, and Jim Deering, who helped build the art barn. So thank you so very much for this wonderful honor. Have a great night.
Thank you, Janis, and thank you, Ann. I'm now going to introduce Richard Skidmore, who is going to give some comments and introduce our next award winner, Denys Wortman. Richard Skidmore.
Well, this is a wonderful thing. I have never preached before. But I think if you're standing up here, I think you're preaching. So, but I'm very pleased to be here to honor my friend Denys Wortman. And here we are gathered to award Denny the Martha's Vineyard Museum Medal, which I think you just saw, so you know that, strangely enough, it can't be worn. I don't know, so it will go on the wall, as Phil mentioned, I'm sure. But, you know, even without this honor, Denny has always been someone to look up to. I've known him for nearly 20 years, and at 6'5", he's still the tallest friend I have. Back in his high school days, he was, of course, on the basketball team, and the tallest person on Martha's Vineyard. So at times like this, when we're talking about someone who has stature in the community, we need look no further than Denys Wortman. Yes, height comes naturally to Denny, but 6'5" was not enough for him. He started getting really high in his college years, when he began training to be a pilot in what was to become a lifelong fascination with flying. Planes, seaplanes, helicopters, and now piloting drones. Yes, but climbing Gay Head Light? Sorry, no, he's afraid of heights. Okay, so nevertheless, during the move of Gay Head Light, Denny volunteered his time, and he and I created a time-lapse film of that project that can be seen on YouTube. He loves to tinker and play with the latest technology, and that playful purposefulness is a mark of this man. He makes the things he does fun. Fun for himself and fun for those around him. That spreading of joyful enthusiasm is a gift that he keeps on giving. Thank you, Denny. Being a lighthouse keeper, I am perhaps the ultimate landlubber, but I have heard some of Denny's boating tales and his love for a craft built by master boat builder Erfurt Burt, called the Vineyard 15, which, like Denny, was designed for these waters which surround us. In his youth, he served as captain of James Cagney's Mary Ann. That Cagney fellow, an actor, I believe, was brought here by Denny's artistic and cartoonistic dad. Mr. Cagney was present at the family dinner table on occasion, as was the harmonica-playing painter Tom Benton, another friend of Denny's dad. These two smallish, feisty men were, of course, giants in their fields of endeavor and excellent role models for an impressionable youth who would ultimately dwarf them. I met Denny at the formative meetings that resulted in the creation of MV TV, our local public access community television station. Together with several others, we founded the station that just this past week was broadcasting live from West Tisbury. This was possible because the MV TV mobile studio, which allows outreach to the community, was again put to work at the Ag Fair. And that studio on wheels is one of Denny's enduring MVTV initiatives. Out of those formative early meetings, pre-MVTV, Denny emerged as our leader and was able, with John Alley's help, to get all 6 towns to give up a revenue stream from Comcast, pool those monies, and allow us to birth and sustain community television with those funds. I was at the All Island Selectmen's meeting when we presented that concept and would like to put that accomplishment, that feat, in perspective. Many of you know that island-wide, quote unquote, is one of the necessary euphemisms employed on MV because to the singular sensibility of each of our 6 towns, regional is a curse word. The late Art Flathers said it best, quote, Martha's Vineyard is made up of 6 islands connected by land. Achieving that solid financial support from our 6 towns was no small thing, and thank you, Denny. Denny continued in the leadership role as MVTV board chairman, guiding the enterprise forward until 2012. During his MVTV tenure in 2006, Denny became involved as co-chairman with the Tisbury Spring Building Restoration Committee, which, as I hope you all know, has given the island a wonderfully restored old building and access to one of the most beautifully serene scenic locations on Martha's Vineyard. Really worth a visit anytime you need to slow the pace of life. Thank you, Denny. His tenure as select person for the town of Tisbury was a big success. He got out alive, but barely. His heart said more than one term would be terminal, and thankfully he listened, and here we are. If Denny's presence right here today wasn't mandatory, he might well be at his and Marilyn's lovely Hines Point home across the water from his latest project, piloting a drone high above as he is wont to do, documenting the progress. This latest project, the creation of a new home for an old island institution, you know who you are, is in an even older landmark building, the 1895 Marine Hospital, was his idea. Even sitting here, we can envision that gorgeous spot, our eyes looking out from the high bluff, playing over the harbor and the lagoon. And we envision this largely because of Denny's efforts. Not that he didn't have help. The name of his friend and neighbor, Calvin Linneman, comes to mind. But the big guy had a big idea for that big building on the bluff, and in his sly, understated way, he navigated the shoals, avoided the shallows and the storms, and safely landed the new Martha's Vineyard Museum in Tisbury's lap. Having spoken to people involved with this bright new chapter in the museum's history, I heard phrases like thought leader, creative energy, thoughtful, generous spirit, and I recognized Denny in those words. He is someone who puts his full energies into things he believes in, and luckily, he lives here among us. I suppose most people of a certain height have large hearts, but I know that this man's heart, whatever trouble it might have given him, is metaphorically large in its caring for and devotion to this place, Martha's Vineyard, and its people. I give you the mayor of Hines Point, Denys Wortman.
There was no collusion. Thank you, Richard. I'm honored. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Stever. Thank you, the board. Thank all of the museum people. It's an honor to be here. I sometimes don't know where to begin. I was hoping when we started this, that this evening would be held out on the hill in front of the museum in Vineyard Haven. But because of construction, and actually with the weather it is today, it's probably lucky we're here. But I'd like to try a little experiment. I'd like you all to close your eyes for a minute. Envision that we're sitting on the hill in Vineyard Haven. Can you all close your eyes? I'm going to close mine too. Think going back 10,000 years. Who was there? The Wampanoags. And what a beautiful place it might have been. They would fish, and they would hunt, and live there. And they worked there. Years later, in the 16, 17, 1800s, all the ships that came into Holmes Hole, and all the people that came. What a wonderful sight that must have been, with the 3, 4, 5-masted schooners out there. What history was created? Then we move forward. Come up to the time when I knew it as a kid. This was in the 40s and 50s. I lived on Hines Point back then also. There was a place, back then you couldn't come all the way down Skiff Avenue. So when I would ride my bike home from school, I'd come through the back little pathway, through the Marine Hospital parking lot, down the driveway in the front, and ride home. That was my first memories of it. Now, whenever I go over there, you see places, and it takes you back. And for us older folk, I'm a new octogenarian in April. But when you see these old things, it takes you back, and I think that's so important. It brings back so many happy memories. You can open your eyes now. And what does the museum bring? It brings back all those memories. And they're different from all of us. The older folks, we see things and they remind us of other times. We'll see an object and we'll relate it to something when we were a kid. And it takes us back and it makes us feel young again. For the younger folks, it's a marvelous place of learning. We have such a marvelous education facility. I think Anne Ducharme, our education leader here, is a marvelous person and is going to do wonderful things for the Vineyard and all our school children. I just envision it as this gathering place. You know, we've got these 6 islands that are connected by land. That was said by Art Flathers, who I knew very well when I was in high school. And this will be a place for people to gather and come together and see the history that really surrounds us and brings us together. Anyway, that's basically my thoughts. I came here for the first time when we moved here year-round in 1941. I was born in 1938. We moved here. Dad found that he could work from here. I grew up here. I went to school here. I feel well-grounded. I suppose some of the old people say you'll never be an islander. I wasn't born here, but I came here pretty early. And after college, moved off island, met my wife Marilyn, raised our family in Sudbury. And then 20 years ago, well, maybe 22 years ago, something very strange happened. Oh, let me just back up a minute. We'd moved to Hines Point in 1948. My folks had bought the house. In 1958, my dad passed on, and in 1961, the house I grew up in was sold. I was very upset with Mom for doing it, but she said if I wanted it, I could buy it. And she got $40,000 for it. And that was a lot of money to a kid at that age. But jumping ahead 22 years later, the house came up for sale, and we bought it back. I had to pay a little more than she got for it, but that's okay. So it was history sort of repeating itself. So I'm back where I want to be. And I see the old Marine Hospital coming together again. And what memories. In the 8th grade, there was a friend of mine, Carl Mankinen, and his father was a surgeon there. And I remember going through the hospital once. Carl and his dad took me through it. And then with the St. Pierre camp, and all the island kids and all the kids that have been through it over the years, it must be thousands. So it's marvelous what's happening at that place. And I just want to thank all of you for all that you've done. It's a real team effort, and I'm so happy I could be part of it. And in the words of a great man and former board chair, I would just like to say onward. Thank you. By the way, I did something historic. While your eyes were closed, I took your picture. Now I can show how I put everybody to sleep.
Denny, I want to present you in all of your regale with the Martha's Vineyard Medal in recognition of your commitment to preserving island history, art, and culture. Thank you from all of us. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all to the award winners. Thank you to the supporters, board members, staff, and community. This hereby adjourns the meeting, and you are welcome to go back to the museum for all sorts of goodies that Katie Fuller, I know, has pulled together. Thank you all.